Oh, hey there. Hey, welcome to Comic Book News live stream, Airwave, the comic book live stream. Today, we're going to talk all about what? All kinds of stuff. We're going to talk about, man, the comic apocalypse. Is it really upon us? Diamond Comics has announced they've stopped all deliveries of comics. The major publishers, I don't know, they're all over the place. Today, they're distributing comics digitally. To the next day, they're not. Maybe they're going to go through multiple distributors. Maybe they're not. We need some people to bring some sanity to this situation. So I've brought together an expert panel of comic book industry professionals, starting with Jeremy Shore of Titan Comics.
Hi there.
Let me do this. Jim Mortensen, returning from last week from Comics Revolution in the Chicagoland area.
Thanks.
Leaf Smith, Mission, Comics and Art, San Francisco. Welcome back, Leaf. New to the live stream, Mike Hanson. Mike is a freelance editor of collected editions for multiple companies in the past, including Marvel and Dark Horse Comics. Mike, welcome to the stream.
Thanks for having me.
Last, but certainly not least, Derek McCaw, podcaster extraordinaire, comics raconteur. He's got a lot to say, and we want to hear about it. I want to hear about, from all of you experts today, a little bit about this comic apocalypse situation. I want to start with the retailers. I want to go around first to the three retailers, and you tell me the situation in your locality and how it may or may not differ from the rest of the country. Jeremy?
Well, here in Dallas, we're supposed to be on. We can't be open, but they're still allowing us to do curbside service, and I can do mail out. So I've got an employee who comes in every day. It gives me a reason to have them stay on payroll. I really don't want to let all my employees go, and because I sell on multiple platforms on the interwebs, and like we shipped out, I don't know, 8 or 10 packages today, and I still have customers who are calling in to have their stuff mailed to them. But the store itself can't be open. This is, hang on, yeah, it's been 10 days since that order came across.
Okay, and are the shelter-in-place orders in your state or county any different? Do you have an end announced for that order?
I mean, other than being a non-essential business and having a small window of exclusion because I do ship product, that allows me to have an employee here and them not have too many cows about that, at least not so far.
Okay. Oh, looks like we might have lost Derek. He's having some connection problems. He'll jump back in. Jim Mortensen, what's going on in Chicago, man?
It's roughly the same as Jeremy. We're shelter in place. Non-essential businesses shouldn't be doing anything. I believe they would prefer for us just to do mail order, but unlike Jeremy, we don't really do a lot on the interwebs. We really are just a local shop, far more of a casual place for folks to come in. So we don't have nearly as big of a installed customer base that I can easily contact. So we've been largely closed. I'll be going in tomorrow, and we'll do a little bit for curbside delivery and deliveries, but it's a very small part of it.
What percentage of your business would you say is weekly/monthly comics?
I would guess weekly comics is probably, I mean, I got two different stores. You know, my more typical suburban store is probably 70 or 80% weekly comics. My store that's a little closer to Chicago, it's a little more of a reader store, it's probably only 50, maybe 60%. So that's a store that if I could be open, we would still be doing some business. The other store would be really tough to pull out.
Leaf, San Francisco situation. Give us the skinny.
Yeah, we're shelter in space also. We've been closed down for 2 weeks now in They actually just today extended that order to beginning of May, and also shut all playgrounds and park facilities. So they've actually made things stricter. My store is closed. And as I interpret the order, we're not really supposed to leave our house unless it's essential. So I haven't been able to justify doing mail order or anything like that.
Oh, and joining us, late breaking, Mr. Cliff Biggers, owner of Dr. Knows Comics in the Atlanta area and publisher, writer, and all-around smart guy for Comic Shop News. Welcome, Cliff.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
You're just in time to give us your last kind of like local retailer roundup. Like what's going on in the Atlanta area? How does it differ from the rest of the country, if at all?
Well, that depends on what county you're in. My county, we're allowed to be open. We still cannot open before 6 a.m. and we cannot stay open past 9 p.m., but non-essential businesses are allowed to remain open. We expect that to change at any point because, unfortunately, statewide numbers continue to climb. In our county, they continue to climb at not quite as fast a rate, but they're still climbing, and that's not what anyone wants to see. But currently, we are open for business. We have not had to close yet. Last week was about 80% of a normal week. This week, the first 2 days have been a normal Monday and a Tuesday. Tomorrow, with no new books to sell, that will not be the case.
Great. So Mike Hanson, how's this affecting you? As a guy, you're an editor, you're a freelancer, you live up here in the sticks with me. So how is this whole situation affecting you and your publishing schedule and all? What can you tell us about what you've heard from your bosses in that regard?
As far as my work from Marvel, it's business as usual right now. I work on the graphic novel end of things. So as a freelance researcher, I put together the contents of what goes in all the books, the stories, the order of the stories, the bonus features, many of which Marvel doesn't have digitally, so they'll actually take up most of my time, even though they're the smallest part of the book. But in terms of retail, to get to what the other guys are talking about, I was working at a local bookstore up until about a month ago for the last 4.5 years. And I can say that locally, the retail situation has shifted quite a bit from what I'm hearing here in Humboldt. They just made the shelter-in-place order a lot more strict. So bookstores cannot be open, no more curbside pickup, no more local shipping. The only thing that bookstores can do right now is do direct-to-home orders from their distributors like Ingram or Baker. Well, Baker and Taylor's gone now as far as the bookstore biz. But as far as my freelance work, it hasn't really affected it much at all so far. But I'm kind of on the low end of the totem pole as far as that stuff goes at Marvel. They have a lot of different areas that all do their own thing. I'm part of the special projects division technically. So it's probably going to hit us last. It's not going to affect us immediately as far as the direct market goes.
Got it. Mike, I'm going to bump you for a second to bring Derek back in. We can only have 6 at a time on the live stream. No offense. So Derek, your situation, where are you located? You're still in the South Bay, right? In the San Jose area? Santa Clara area? Oh, hey. Yeah. Sorry, can you hear us, Derek?
I'm actually in LA. So I can hear you.
Oh, okay. I think we're getting a lag. We're getting an audio lag here.
I have a lag.
Okay. Derek, I'm going to bump you for a second. I'm going to bring Mike back in. Maybe we can join the situation. Feel free to chime in the comments and we'll super chat you up. Oh, we lost him. I'm going to bring Mike back in. So, okay, guys, back to the topic at hand. So today we're talking about the Comicpocalypse, right? So in the past week, a lot of news, back and forth, a flurry of news. First of all, DC says, no, man, Diamond doesn't want to publish comics. Well, we got comics to put out, so we're going to find another distribution system. We had an exclusive deal with them, but the terms of the deal are such, as I've always understood it, that DC could pretty much break it at the drop of a hat for just about any reason. That was always sort of like hinted to us. And this is certainly a good enough reason. If they can't distribute any product, obviously that would break their exclusivity. So Cliff Biggers, you know a lot about the history of the exclusivity and these things. What is your take on the mixed messages coming out of DC? Is this coming from the new corporate ownership?
Perhaps so, but I think there are people within DC who would be more than glad to make a change. But let me point out one thing. Nowhere in DC's press release did it say anything about finding new distribution to us. It said they would find new distribution to get their books to readers. I think that new distribution is called Walmart and Target. I do not believe for a moment there is any distribution company in America that is set up to try to move product to a large number of comic shops, even 1,000, even if that's all that's open across the country. I don't think anyone wants to do it. We are demanding in terms of condition. We're demanding in terms of promptness. We want to order individual quantities, all the things that nobody wants. Random House has notified people that as of today, or as of this week, they're going to start demanding that orders be in case lots. I am fairly sure. I know that Hachette has already made that order. I've heard that Random House is going to be doing that as well if they haven't already. Stores don't want to have to order case lots of every paperback, and certainly not of every comic. But read the press release. Nowhere does it say comic shops are direct market for that distribution. And I do not know of any source out there that can handle it. Ingram is not interested in handling that level of service to comic shops, most of whom are not currently accounts. Random House doesn't want it. I've heard mentioned that Blood Art, which distributes to libraries as well as library supplies, is a possibility, but they don't want to have to handle that many shops either. But Walmart and Target already have a relationship with Marvel and DC and would love to be able to offer all those products at a deep discount, fully returnable basis.
Right. Jeremy Shore, I know you've had a store for a long time, so you've seen the distributor wars. You've seen these things come and go. You've seen exclusivity and breaking off and all this. What is your take on this message coming out of DC?
I'd love to find a way to argue effectively against Walmart and Target distribution, but it makes sense from a high-level perspective of getting the most comics out in front of the most people the fastest. At the same time, if any of y'all or any of the people watching this, I know my customers tell me this repeatedly, when they go to Walmart or Target to look for the comics that DC was distributing exclusively through them, they were uniformly unhappy with the condition of the comics, the way they were displayed, the way they were priced, all that stuff. And I can't imagine that the customer base that the industry has built up over the years that is as discerning and demanding as you just pointed out that they are, is going to be happy on a long-term basis with the kind of indifferent service that both Walmart and Target have made the basis of their business.
But given the lack of a choice, right? If, as Cliff says, Walmart or someone like them is the only kind of chain or organization that has the distribution capability to even make it happen, one, there would have to be major differences. They would have to obviously be fully returnable. Walmart's not eating a dime one in unquote comics.
Not one.
I'll tell you about that.
And they're also not going to be selling onesie, twosie copies of Squirrel Girl and Lady Death and whatever you have. So I feel like the publishers, and maybe this would be a good thing, as Cliff alluded to in our last episode, might have to winnow their line down to like things that really can sell in mass. Jim Mortensen, what's your take, man? If comic stores disappear, where do I got to go to get my comics on Wednesday? Or will that even be a reality?
Well, I think digital is the only answer if the comic shops go away. There's no other way to distribute it that way. But going back for a second to what's going on with DC, it reminds me of the old Winston Churchill thing, which is DC Comics will do the right thing after they've exhausted every other option. And unfortunately, right now, we're seeing that DC isn't communicating effectively with any of their partners or facing the reader themselves. If we have to try to discern what they mean in a press release by other distribution channels or other coded language, which could be aimed at us, it could be aimed at Diamond Comics. There could be some rift there between themselves and Diamond, and they'd like to get things shaken up a little bit, or at least cause a little, late night concern amongst the higher ups there. But we don't know what that is if you use very oblique coded words. And as we talked about last week, back when Paul Levis was the head, everything would be very clear, it'd be very steady. And much like the stock market, I think the comic book market likes stability. It likes to know what's happening. It likes to have a nice, clear path forward. And if we're guessing, day by day, week by week, what's going to happen, what the policies are, why they're choosing to do that stuff, we're going to make a lot of wrong guesses. We're going to get angry about things that we shouldn't be angry about. We're going to worry about things we shouldn't worry about. And it's up to DC and Marvel to do a better job of clearly and succinctly communicating what their thoughts are and why they're doing what they're doing.
Agreed. Leaf Smith, you've been in business now for a long time. I used to think of you as the new guy on the block, but man, you've run a store for a long time in a really challenging retail environment. And DC during that time has historically been, one of the probably your better sellers and considered one of your better partners. So what does this news tell you about change in direction, ownership, what have you, and ability to rely on DC as a trusted partner?
I mean, DC has already been a company in crisis, just with firing Dan DiDio, about a month ago when Comics Pro was happening. And there's a lack of leadership right now. I think internally there's a lot of different stakeholders. Some people really understand the problem, and then there are other people that are coming from AT&T or upper management that don't even understand why they're in the publishing business to begin with. And I think that statement just sort of left them with a lot of wiggle room. I mean, they knew that they needed to say something, but they didn't really know what they were saying. The returnability is a huge, but as far as distribution, I don't see them being able to really distribute to comic stores in any functional way. I think they may be leaving the door open for some other digital initiatives, but that's yet to be seen.
Right. Mike Hanson. Yeah. I want to ask you, I know you're not at the bookstore anymore, but that's where I met you at Eureka Books. By the way, a wonderful bookstore. You were one of the big reasons why it was so great when I was there. Great comic book selection for a bookstore. So, your bookstore was used books, but the selection of new stuff. Returnability is more common, but as I understand it, probably not even used that much in the standard book trade these days. Tell me what you think in the lack of a direct market distribution system. Can bookstores pick up the slack?
No way. First of all, returnability actually is still a big part of it, particularly with small independent bookstores, much like strictly comics stores. The Eureka Books was new and used, so the used stuff really propped up the business, and the new stuff, it was a crapshoot with a lot of the categories, how many you're going to sell in a smaller regional market. So that made the graphic novels, I have to be incredibly picky with what we brought in. It'd have to be a near sure thing. I mean, the first Marvel one I brought in was the #1 seller for Marvel. Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe. I mean, of all the Marvel books you could imagine would be their best seller, that one killed them all. So, I had to start there and build the new side of that business from there. And it grew really, really well and really fast. But we did have returns every month, even with the graphic novels. Getting back to what people have been saying about DC, though, I agree that their communication has really been a shit show this last week. The lack of leadership is going to be a problem going forward because the retail community in comics, everyone knows each other, everyone's close-knit, it's a community. And these corporate structured companies that are just going to be top down like this, they aren't taking the time to realize the impact that a lack of communication can have on everyone on a day-to-day basis in an emergency situation like this. So, Jim Lee wakes up one day in charge of DC Comics. He's very, very good at what he does, but I mean, it's pretty clear that he is not interested in being a publisher and running an entire comics company on his own. And I think AT&T and Warner's are going to need to make some moves to figure out the best way for their business to continue. But I shouldn't be touching my face. I'm setting a bad example on the internet. But I don't think that digital is going to be a big problem either. I mean, the digital market, it is what it is, but everyone has read digital comics. Cliff made a great point last week about how just getting one, trying out one, and you're going to get marketed forever on that. But I think that people who want digital are going to read digital, and that we serve that want print, they're going to stick with print. So I don't see any market advantage trying to go digital only right now because people are going to remember. People still remember Marvel and Heroes World in 1995. They're not going to let Marvel forget about that.
Well, it's only us old folks. Come on now.
Right.
I the Dark Horse 20 years ago.
Who's buying comics really cares about that? That's a big question to me. Well, I also come back to the fact that there is so much marginal material being printed that the direct market only cares because stores are so willing to be completists and really get out there for their fans and carry onesie, twosie copies, which I don't care is not profitable. You cannot make a profit on selling 1 or 2 or 3 copies of a comic. I just don't. You can't. So, so I come back to that. Digital might be the only way you're going to continue to see that breadth. If you go to a mass market print, it's going to have to be big sellers or nothing. They're going to be cutting to the bone, and I'm just not sure how that's going to affect the market. Maybe Cliff, please.
Okay. One other factor that we haven't considered is that when Walmart first started carrying comics, DC wanted to be in Walmart just as badly, Walmart wanted DC Comics as badly as DC wanted to be in Walmart. Walmart pursued that market and pressured DC and offered very favorable terms. If DC is coming to them in a position of need, if that's what's going on, and this is all speculation, but if that's the case, they're going to get the deal that I am told most people get with Walmart, and that is Walmart only pays for items that are run through their register. If an item is stolen from Walmart, then the publisher eats a loss. That's not a sold item. Walmart doesn't do returns in physical form. They don't strip books. They don't even do affidavit returns. They generate sales reports and said, you shipped our stores 10,000 of these. We showed that we sold 2,000 of them, so we're only paying you for the 2,000. This is very different than the returns that we get. If we get a return, they know that having to strip copies is a deterrent to some stores, and they know that we're only going to get credit back for the copies that we return. The burden is on us to eat any losses from theft, misplacement, anything like that. And Walmart doesn't work that way with most of their vendors. You take all the risk.
It's been often said, though, that Walmart enforces a rigor in their partners, right? Enforces a discipline in them, makes them better as suppliers.
Better, not necessarily.
Well, some have said that. Make them more efficient, let's say.
Right.
They must be more efficient to use the Walmart method. So,
but if you go back and do some research,
comics industry needs though? A little more focus on like mega hits and efficiency and selling more comics. Jim Mortensen, you look a little skeptical about that. I know you're not the biggest Walmart fan in the world, but what do you think about that notion?
Yeah, I think that efficiency is bang for the buck, and the reality is if they just sell to Walmart, they perhaps can make far more money doing far less work, but it won't be enough work to actually support what they do, the number of people who work at DC Comics, let alone the number of people who work inside of this industry. Can you boil down 52 DC Comics to 4 and sell more copies of that 4 than the 52? Yes. Is it more efficient? Yes. It employs 4 creative teams rather than 52 creative teams. It employs Walmart as opposed to the direct market. It is a more efficient stream, but efficiency doesn't necessarily equate for the best quality or the best situation for the most people. It's definitely the best situation for Walmart and possibly for AT&T looking at DC Comics for all I know. But, I think there's some real benefits to having Squirrel Girl. There's some real benefits to having diversity. There's some real benefits to having new voices. And those sorts of things are not encouraged by a Walmart sort of market.
Agreed. Although I do think the 100-page giants hint at a potential change in format, maybe onto like, what do they call that? Tankobon, the manga style, the big.
Sure. People have tried that. I mean, CrossGen tried it way back in the day too, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
People have tried it. They're releasing DC Giants to our stores now. We do okay with them in certain situations. They're evergreen things, so we'll sell them eventually in one way or another. But it certainly isn't the slam dunk
for me.
Yeah, it certainly isn't the slam dunk that we all assumed it would be in that situation. And the other thing is, like how many do people buy? I mean, did you buy any, Dan?
Of which one are you talking about?
Of the Walmart 100-page giants. Did you go to Walmart?
Are you kidding me? When I went down, picked up a tub of margarine and like a gross Oreo cookies and got my 100-page giants, of course.
Nice.
No, dude, we don't even have a Walmart really around here. We got a mini Walmart, and I don't think they carried them there. But you know what? With the right price point and the right product, I could see myself going to Walmart to get my comics, man. If I didn't have another place to get it, I definitely wouldn't expect to find interesting independent titles or anything of that nature. But I might go pick up some comics, and I might have to rely on the internet and digital and Kickstarters and whatever the next model is. Hey, right. Mike Hanson, what do you got to say about you had a point to make about Walmart?
Well, real quick, what you said about the format, I think that's key is that I don't think Walmart is interested in carrying the traditional comics format at all. I mean, DC had to tailor make this gigantic book format in order to even get it into Walmart in the first place. Right. At a price point that Walmart would be happy with. They're not interested in carrying $2, $3, $4 comics that are flimsy, that people are going to paw through, that are going to get stolen and torn and no one's going to want. And the other thing is that Walmart, most of what's in Walmart stores, Walmart doesn't put on the shelves. They have third-party vendors that supply all of that for Walmart. Unless DC Comics is willing to build the infrastructure to do that themselves, I can't imagine Walmart carrying the kinds of comics that comic shops traditionally carry.
Interesting.
Now, one more thing about Walmart. We were talking a while ago about Walmart encouraging efficiency. There's a horrible downside to that. And anyone who wants to read about it, if you go to the internet and search for Walmart and Vlasic pickles and see how Walmart drove the company from a quality label to a low quality bankrupt company. And then they did the same thing with Huffy Bikes. They demanded more and more and wanted to keep more and more of the profit and give less and less to the manufacturer until it became unprofitable to do business with Walmart. It was putting people out of business. And
certainly,
Walmart has a history of doing that.
Certainly true. Certainly true.
I want to shift. They're not going to want to handle those comics in large quantities. They're going to want a select few titles. Diamond catalog, if you just strip away the variants, there were over 800 different titles between comics, collected volumes, and manga volumes. Over 800 different titles in the last Diamond previews. There is no chance in the world that Walmart would ever want to carry more than 24 to 36 of those titles.
Yeah, and forget about variant covers. That might be the silver lining if that happened. We get rid of all those crappy variants.
Forget about variant publishers. There might only be 3 or 4 of those left by the time we get through.
So I want to shift it right into Marvel right now too. While we're talking, I want to go to Jeremy Shore, and I want to say, so Marvel, right? They tried to make a move. They tried to make the Heroes World move. They bought a distribution company. They said, "Screw you guys, we're going exclusive. You want Marvel comics, you're coming through us." And that crashed and burned. They could not make it happen. I feel like they're in this new distribution system. They are like, they want no piece of it. They don't even want to think about it. So when they hear Diamond shutting down, they just say, we're going to shut down too for the time being. What's your take on Marvel's angle? Because I was very surprised that they are not pushing ahead with digital or print comics in any way.
Well, Marvel is very from a comic book retailer perspective, Marvel is very much a black box. The only kind of output or interaction we have with Marvel is through one source. And that one source has never been he's been doing this, 15 years? Something like that. He's never been particularly forthcoming with any kind of clarification of almost anything. And to me, that leaves us just guessing where Marvel's going to go. I did like the letter that Dan Buckley put out today. I don't know if everybody else saw that. Yeah, the way the internet's going the last few days, yeah, that stuff makes it around fast. But I like I say, I did like that letter. And one of the things that, and this is slightly off topic, but at the same time germane to the situation, I hope that at least the major publishers take advantage of this enforced period of no comics on the rack to get ahead of their schedule, so that when we get comic shipping again, we're going to have multiple comics that we are expecting to come out, and they all come out on time. And the 3 Jokers and just the one, I know that's a DC title, not a Marvel title, but Marvel's renowned for little titles suddenly, that ships 2 weeks late this time, that kind of thing. And maybe
J.J. Abrams Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe all of the publishers, not just Marvel, not just DC, can use this, what's probably going to turn into a 90-day enforced vacation, in my opinion. I know that's a later subject, to get ahead of their production.
Well, and I think historically the problem that we have is that Marvel Comics waits for DC to do something, and then they do 70% of that. And DC has been doing nothing. So we're waiting for DC to set the standard, and then Marvel's going to do close to that to kind of show that they're kind of interested. But with DC not doing anything, we've just been in this holding pattern that's been killing us.
Derek, hey, Derek's back. Leaf, I guess, dropped out. But Derek, you're making some points about Walmart in your locality and the lack of availability in different stores. Can you still hear me? Uh-oh, you might be lagging. You're lagging again. Sorry, dude.
Well, you brought it up too. I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yoink! Sorry, buddy.
Oh no.
We'll bring him back. Leaf's back in as well. Sorry. So we're on the Marvel topic. Jim Mortensen, tell me your take on Marvel. Historically, they've been the villain. DC has been the White Knight. Have those roles switched?
Not completely. No, not at all. There's just the White Knight just fell off the horse. That's all that's happened. My take on Marvel Comics used to be Marvel Comics treated retailers like the U.S. treated foreign policy, which was, you don't like it, too fucking bad, deal with it. And we're Marvel Comics, and you're going to carry our books no matter what. And it was a couple years back where Marvel started coming in and asking us, like, so what can we do for you? And it just blew my mind when that happened, but also showed, how far things have come, where they're actually interested in listening to partners and trying to find a way forward. Having said that, they've not really stepped up and took the brass ring and made a huge difference here. Again, they seem to be sort of hanging back. And I mean, they did offer the extra discount very early on, which is definitely appreciated. And which kind of equates to a certain percentage of returnability. But, it certainly leaves a lot to be desired.
I think they got really slapped poorly for that, because that was for existing stuff that's even in the stores and in the pipeline too. I thought that was a pretty generous offer to make that discount offer. Yeah. Hey, Leaf, what's your take on the Marvel DC thing? Like what's going on? Which is your more trusted?
Neither right now, but I appreciate the Deb Buckley's email, that he's sort of stepping out and taking a public face on this, not committing to not doing digital at least this week was a lot of fears.
Yes.
Yeah,
I agree.
We'll see about next week, But I think they've been apparently calling around to a lot of stores trying to get the temperature. And I'm not in my store, so I haven't gotten the call. But I think what they're trying to figure out is, are there enough stores open at all to receive product? And I don't think that is the case. I don't think there's enough stores that are actually open, and they're stuck in the water. Everybody is.
Well, I'm of two minds on this, right? Because on one thing, man, the stress of having a business that you can't open, and now you're hemorrhaging money every day that you can't open. On the other hand, the stress of like, oh man, I got a shipment of comics coming in. I got to get my staff ready. I got to get these books on the shelves. I got to sell them to an infected public. And I got to worry about everything I got to worry about on top of catching a disease and dying, not being able to breathe. It almost boggles my mind, the dilemma that you guys are in. It's really a precarious situation.
Well, the good side is
or being responsible for affecting others.
Say that again, Cliff. I'm sorry.
I said the good side is I got to sleep for 8 hours this morning because I had no reason to get up and meet a freight shipment. But the bad side is I have no income coming in from that shipment. I mean, we order books to make a profit and we're not getting them. I understand why we're not getting them, and I don't question that decision, but it does take a toll. We are the days we've been open, we've been allowed to be open with last week's product, we have sold like we typically would for a Monday and Tuesday. Everything changes starting tomorrow because every day we're now selling week-old product and nothing new.
So this is the question that comes up. Not just at this moment in time, because we're going to get past this crisis. I'm hoping most of the people on this call are going to still have their stores when we get through it. I'm praying for that. Right. How do you pivot? How do you, if you haven't already, how do you diversify your store away from comics, or do you away from weekly comics, maybe towards a book format, maybe towards more games or other products at all? I want to hear from Leaf because I know this is something that you've already been doing over the past couple of years. I've seen it when I go into your store. Absolutely. Tell me, how do you make money without comics?
I mean, you offer a wide range of graphic novels, and you stock what sells, and you present a lot more things with face forward. I mean, a huge part of my income is image trades. I make a lot of money on image trades and a lot of other graphic novels. But, rather than sort of putting a lot of diversity of product in the single issues, having a larger diversity in the graphic novels and trade collections. If you're not curating your single issues, that's a big problem because there's a lot of stuff out there that doesn't deserve the shelf space.
So we got a comment here that I put up on the screen from one of my greatest friends and biggest mentors in the comic book business, J.K. McGill, who I bought my comic book store from, who hired me as a lad to work in a comic book store. And, he went along with me when I moved towards this bookstore model and away from collectibles and everything else. And what he mentions here is that it's tough because if comics pivot towards a graphic novel thing, like if publishing pivots away from pamphlets and towards graphic novels, I think there's already huge chains of bookstore, not many huge chains anymore, but lots and lots of bookstores out there that are very equipped to sell that format of comic books. And I'm not sure without the pamphlet is almost like the hedge, right, for the comic book industry, in my opinion. I want to first go here for a second to a guy who makes his living making these books and courting the bookstore market. Mike, tell me, so Marvel has not had an original graphic novel initiative for I don't remember how long. I don't remember, like maybe since Death of Captain Marvel or something like that, right?
No. About 5 years.
Not true.
Been more recently than that.
What's the original OGN format for Marvel? What am I missing?
Jim Shooter did the trilogy of Infinity graphic novels for Marvel, the original. Infinity Siblings is one of the titles that I recall. But that was a trilogy of original graphic novels done as hardcover format graphic novels. 5 years ago, 5 or 6, they tried an entire line called Season 1 or something like that. There were retellings of the origins of the heroes. Tried doing those as graphic novels. So Marvel has done some tailored programs trying that market.
Okay, so
and also more recently, the web exclusive, or rather the web first comics are being collected in print in the graphic novel format.
I see.
I'm not aware of any that have been released as web, then periodical, and then graphic novel. I think it's gone from digital to graphic novel with those.
Then to periodical.
Which to me could be the potential. This is the moment in time when if it's going to happen, it could happen that like the periodical market becomes purely digital and then becomes physical only in the trade paperback. Right.
Can I say something about that?
Yes.
Marvel did an interesting experiment. A couple of years ago, they did a Jessica Jones web comic. They collected it in a trade paperback, a collected volume graphic novel. We carried it. We sold 2 copies. Now, over a year later, they began publishing that same story as a 4 or 5 issue limited series. We thought no one will want this because it's already been out in collected volume for a year. Why would they buy the comics? We had to go back and reorder because it ended up selling about a dozen copies of every issue. The trade paperback has always been in our store. It never was out of stock. We have 17,000 collected volumes on our shelves. We keep almost 1,000 books about comics in the reference section. We're a huge store with books of comics and books about comics, but our customers were much more enthused to buy that same story a year later in a periodical.
Really fascinating data point, actually. And, the fact that these comics, the serialization of them, I think lends towards a more like reactive work from the author. They get feedback that much quicker. They're not waiting a year or 6 months to drop this thing into the world. Right. Somebody like Brian K. Vaughan on Saga's got a letters section going and has an active fan base reading the monthlies, and then a whole other layer of fans reading the trade paperbacks, and then the hardcovers and everything else too. Jim Mortensen, could we see an age at the end of the floppy with the rise in paper costs and all this distribution problems? I know collectability is a thing, but that could go to first printing hardcovers, right? Why not?
The digital pre-press has caused a lot of problems for us. I mean, it's one of those things where once it is digitally at the printer, delivering that to the final customer is highly efficient, right? I mean, we just put it up online, you hit a button, it's there. If you sell 10,000 copies, there's 10,000 copies. You sell 5 million copies, there's 5 million copies. There's no excess, there's no shortage. You don't need to print the product. You don't need to ship the product. You don't need to distribute the product to another shipper, to get to a store, to break down, to put on the shelf. There's all of these layers that make it a highly inefficient thing, right? And yet there's still that artifact that has value and has worth. Going back a little bit earlier to talking about graphic novels, if they can save the industry, one of the things that I believe is another tack on to the digital pre-press is that making collections and compilations and trade paperbacks of things is too easy. For DC, for Marvel, for Image, everything they have is already packaged together, right? I mean, all you need to do really is put together 5 issues, take an image from one of the covers, put it on the cover, pay a graphic designer maybe 4 hours to do some manipulation on the covers, and you've got a graphic novel that you can put out and sell to comic shops, a lot of which will buy one of anything that's offered. And you print, you get the orders of 2,200 copies, you sell, you print 2,400, and you cash that check. And it's so easy to do, and it's such easy money that Marvel and DC and other folks too, but especially DC, has put everything they have in that format because they can make easy, quick cash on it. As a result, the impact that backlist has now is almost zero. There's so much stuff, there's so much crap, there's so many things that are out there that nobody actually wants to purchase, either as a retailer or especially as a reader, that trying to get us to buy that next thing now is almost impossible. So trying to get these companies to go past the easy, quick buck, the ability to make money today, and to see a long-term publishing schedule, something that will grow the market, something that you can actually develop, just hasn't happened in years, maybe a decade or more.
Right. J.K. McGill brings up too that Hijinks Comics, my old store, had their rent waived for April, but we have the nicest landlady in the world, who's maybe in her late 80s or 90s, early 90s. Sorry, I don't want to spill the beans on her, but she's the nicest lady in the world. Leaf, yeah. What's the situation in San Francisco? Any rent relief? Have you talked to your landlords? What's going on there? I know you're paying a buttload.
Sure. No, I haven't heard anything from my landlord yet. I think he's probably waiting to see. There is a city grant that is available. I don't know when I'm going to see that money, but that's supposed to help tide us over.
Jeremy Shore, what are you going to be doing, man? Are you going to be eating comics? Like, what do you got to do? Like, got any provisions in your lease for that kind of thing?
Not really. I called my landlord last week and explained the situation to him. He cut me some slack for this month for the rent that was that's. I mean, I wrote the check yesterday. When we get to the end of April, I don't know what I'm going to do. I fully expect to not be open a single day in April, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to pay him anything like what rent is due. So I hope he will be understanding. But I mean, he's got lots of he's got 12 shopping centers around Dallas. So I know I'm not his only customer who will be in that position.
Right. And a lot of people like to think of it as like fat cat landlords. They could just make do, right? But they got obligations to pay as well, too, and everything else, right? So it's not that simple for sure.
Well, and what Jeremy's talking about is what's happening with Diamond as well, right? They just came out and said that they're not going to be able to pay for the publishers and things one step up the ladder chain because all of this stuff is an ongoing conveyor belt. If the conveyor belt stops here, the guy who pays this guy doesn't get his money, and this guy doesn't get that guy's money, and so forth and so on. And our landlord has kind of said, well, we'll wait to see what sort of packages and stimulus are given, and we'll wait to see what happens. Right. But for now, you're paying your regular rents, which I understand. I mean, he, just like Jeremy, I mean, he doesn't have 12 big centers, but he's got 15, 20 properties. If everybody stops paying him, is the bank going to stop charging him mortgage?
Exactly.
They're going to stop charging him tax.
What are you going to do?
And
Yeah.
And now I'm in a different situation there, in that it has been advantageous to me for several years to just go ahead and pay my entire annual rent in December of the year before. And then I don't have to worry about it. I empty the bucket. I pay my rent. I prepay a lot of my diamond bills to carry us through the lean times. And then as I'm not having to write those checks for the first 6 months or so of the year before the diamond bills kick back in again, I don't have to write rent checks for an entire year. The bucket fills up and I can pay it again a year later. Well, I've already alerted my landlord that while we're covered for this year, the bucket may not be as full come December, and I'm giving them updates as to how our business is doing. I don't want to take them by surprise, and I don't want to mislead them. We're certainly hoping that once we get through this lean time and we are able to open back up fully with new comics every week, that business will gradually grow. But I also am aware that a lot of my customers don't have jobs. And when they get jobs, they're going to be looking to put money back into savings.
Yeah.
They're going to be having to pay off some bills of their own. They're not going to come in saying, I'm here, give me $1,000 worth of comics. I've got to fill in the gap. It's going to take a while for them to get up to speed too.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, it does help that in case any retailers didn't know it, there is a federal disaster loan program that you can fill out online right now. And one of the key lines that it stresses, I'm looking at it on the screen, is that funds will be made available, talking about an initial $10,000 loan. Funds will be made available within 3 days of successful application, and this loan advance will not have to be repaid. So that's $10,000 available to retailers to apply for that they will not have to pay back.
That's amazing. I think everybody's maybe, at least my mind is blown by the fact that you prepay your rent a year in advance, Cliff. Like, I don't know.
I've done that for about 5 years. I found it's a good, landlords appreciate it, to put it that way. Landlords like knowing that you don't have to worry about this tenant going away. And it takes pressure off us, and it has been successful for us. I would be much more worried at night. Now my primary worry is making sure my employees get paid.
Right. So guys, Jim brought up Diamond. That's perfect timing there, because so let's close this out tonight and let's talk a little bit about Diamond. Couple rumors out there. Jeppy denies rumors that Penguin House are buying Diamond. I don't know if we want to have any comments on that, but
I can't see it happening. I don't think there's any money in it for Penguin House.
I don't think so. I don't think it makes a lick of sense.
No.
But the one I want to really comment on is the one that Jim brought up, that Diamond has stopped paying the creators, right? They've stopped paying out. I'm assuming the publishers, rather. I'm assuming for stuff that has already shipped to their warehouse, right? And that might have already sold to retailers, and they're just like, well, we don't have money coming in. They give a lot of terms to retailers. So Mike, you know, a freelancer, it's a little bit different, but like as somebody who might be relying on those, as working for a publisher that relies on those payments, what does that signal to you? What would that signal to you?
Well, it ties a lot. It's very analogous to what I was doing at the bookstore, where when Baker and Taylor decided last year to stop distributing to the book trade and only do, I think, libraries and institutions, that really hurt because all of a sudden you're not having a source of good discounts. And I think you're having a similar situation here, where all of a sudden you've got the distributor, the only distributor for 90-95% of publishers, that is saying we're not going to pay any of them. You're left high and dry. I guess that's kind of similar more to like the Capital City bankruptcy, now that I think about it. But
but at the same time,
I don't want to trigger any PTSD with anyone on that.
but I'm assuming though they don't owe Diamond, they don't owe DC or Marvel anything, because they're just like brokered published movers of books. So it's only that small subset, the guys that can afford it the least and need to get paid the most, and probably are owed a very tiny amount compared to the volume of stuff that gets through. So Cliff, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm a publisher. We publish Comic Shop News. Diamond is our distribution source. I am not surprised by the announcement. I know there's a tremendous cash flow squeeze on Diamond right now. Do I expect to get paid? Yes. I expect when comics resume shipment, and it may take a while, but I expect we will get paid for everything. I have confidence in Diamond to do that. I thought they were very upfront in telling me as a publisher, we simply, because of the impact to our cash flow, we cannot afford to do it now. The things that Capital never did with the checks in the mail stories, weeks at a time back in the 90s, Diamond has been very honest and forthright. I think everyone will get paid, but I do agree with the statement that small publishers are really going to be hurt by this, because books that have already sold into the market, some of which have been distributed, some of which are still sitting in a Diamond warehouse undistributed, nobody can get paid for those right now.
Right, and they need that money to pay the printer bill for the next issue coming out in some cases.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Well, actually, it's a little bit different than that as well. From what I understand, and maybe somebody's got better information than I do, but I believe Diamond offers for a lot of small publishers that based upon those non-returnable, non-cancelable orders, they actually write the check to the printer in order to actually pay for that print run of those comics coming down the pike. No? So am I mistaken?
Not in my
I've never heard
in my
I don't
case,
know.
and not in the case of 5 publishers I've spoken with today. None of those 5 publishers are privy to that deal, some of which are what we would call good mid-list size.
Okay, I stand corrected. Sorry.
But it's very interesting there, because the brokered nature of the relationship Diamond has with DC, right? It's a mixed bag. So they don't have to be left holding any DC product or Marvel product, which I'm sure is very desirable. They don't have to keep that inventory on their books. They receive just a simple brokered fee for pushing stuff through the system. So
they charge a warehousing fee to both Marvel and DC as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
True. Although their stuff probably doesn't sit in the warehouse for too long.
Oh, yes, it does. DC does.
Yes.
Yeah. I am still ordering. I still
right.
place occasional orders for items with star codes, and Diamond hasn't issued star code titles in 10 years. But
More than
there are
that.
still some titles. Yeah, there are still some titles where the code is star 0786, for just making up a number. And I just ordered 2 star code titles on my reorder Sunday night, and both of them filled. So those are items from Marvel and DC that have been sitting in a warehouse bin with rent paid for that space for at least a decade.
Maybe you retailers can answer this question. I see on sites like Bleeding Cool every few months there's a list of a ton of graphic novels from Marvel or DC or whoever that's being deep discounted to basically clear out their stock of particular titles.
Right.
Is that stuff that's coming from Diamond warehouses or elsewhere? Trade or
I've always assumed that's them clearing out to not have to pay that warehouse.
Marvel.
Yes, I gather that is stuff that has shown such a reduced sales velocity that it is not earning enough to pay its space, and it's better to try to get rid of it all at once than to keep paying storage space for items that just aren't turning enough copies to even cover their costs.
Guys, I'm going to bring in Derek for a second. He's back on an iPad. We're going to give him another chance. I'm going to bump Leaf for just a second. Sorry, Leaf. I'll bring you right back. Derek, you're in, buddy.
I am. It worked.
Sorry, we can't hear you. You got no audio. You got no audio, dude. No audio.
I heard.
Just kidding. I'm messing with you, dude. So Derek, I know you've been chiming in on the comments here. I appreciate it. Give us your thoughts. I'm sorry you've missed out on a lot of. We're going to be wrapping up pretty soon here. Give me your thoughts on just distribution, Marvel, DC, and Diamond, and this whole situation that we're in right now.
I think what we've just discovered, I mean, you guys as retailers knew this already. This is all a big game of Jenga. And this is the crisis event. Ironic that DC is handling crisis so poorly.
For sure.
We pulled the wrong block, and this tower is about to fall down. And as Dan, you and I have talked, it's like, and now I'm meeting more retailers here, but through working with Fanboy Planet, I every time I go to a town that has a comic shop, I stop and have become friends with so many retailers, and I'm really concerned about stores going out of business. And I mean, it's not just the comics retail, it's bookstores in general too. Independent bookstores are suffering, all kinds of small businesses. But here's like DC, okay, Marvel at least says they're not going to do anything. And I don't remember which one of you said this last week, that maybe if we get through this, we'll see that Steve Geppi actually kind of saved the industry by stopping for now. But I don't know what the right answer is. I'm concerned about e-comics, and what you've said, Dan, is you talk about. I'm seeing people talk online about, well, if we could get, now this is a chance for indie books to get into stores. Well, the stores can't sell if they can't pitch to their customers. It's not. You're not going to get somebody into the habit.
Right.
The smartest thing I was ever told was Marvel and DC do dominate. You've got to have a book that's good enough to convince somebody not buy the 5th Wolverine title this month, or in this case, I think it's 20 different Spider-Man titles were planned for June. I might be slightly exaggerating.
Right.
You've got to convince them they're not going to buy that bag of chips, or the big bag of chips for $4.99. To buy your indie book. That's the only way. You're not going to give up Wolverine or Spider-Man or Superman. Right. They're going to give up the potato chips.
Well, that's the other thing I worry about too, right? Is that like we talked about, there are so many what might be considered marginal comics out there, indie and otherwise, but that are great, right? That are really high quality things that are only supported because a network of independent comic shops exists that can order them through a distributor like Diamond that would carry them. So
I picked up because my good retailer, I go to 2 or 3 regularly because I split my time between Northern and Southern California. But I know, like, I go in my box, the clerks, they will slip on my pull list. They'll go, "Oh, Derek would probably like this one." And so I get these books and I go, all right, I'll buy this one. I'll try this week. And I'm in a position where I can, and not every customer can, but I've been recommended by so many people, and not just, and going to conventions as well and meeting publishers. But, I like this.
So that expert, that's hand selling, right? And that's what only these guys are going to offer. You're never going to get that in a chain store. You might get it in independent bookstores to some degree, but you're not going to get. There also have to be in an independent bookstore. They've got a little graphic novel section, but they got to be experts in literature and cookbooks and travel books and everything else as well. So they're never going to have the depth of knowledge. I just fear that the effect here is going to be the indie market is going to get hit. So Marvel and DC, Time Warner and Disney, they're going to bounce back. No problem. It's those other guys that even missing a few months out of this, either is going to push them to digital, going to push them to self-publish. If they're smart, I'm going to be honest here, fellas. If I were a publisher right now, an indie publisher, I would be 100% on the crowdfunding tip for my books right now. I would be moving all efforts in that direction strictly for a matter of survival. I might be thinking about what Cliff talked about, we all talked about last time, which was offering deals to retailers to get my books into those stores, but those retailers got to exist.
Yes, correct.
Cliff?
No, I think it's, I admire Derek for using special effects to stress his point that publishers and retailers are upside down financially right now. And they're not sure exactly how to deal with that. It is a difficult problem that we all face. I think that we're going to see more people go into crowdsourcing. It is intriguing that the model from Bad Idea, which a couple of weeks ago people thought, I'm not sure this is going to work by not using Diamond and distributing directly to stores. Suddenly, there are other publishers who are looking at doing that, not just in the interim, but some small publishers are saying, this may be something I need to look to in the long term once the market shakes back out, to find a way to build this so that should something like this happen again, I have a relationship with retailers and know how to get these books to them.
I honestly feel like, sorry, go ahead, Derek.
I just have a question. Have any of you retailers seen already the impact of the publishers that are offering that if you buy directly from them and you put in your special instructions, or like TKO had a list of stores and so forth, that they'll split the money 50-50. I just bought Black Mask 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank because they made a point of, I can give half the money that I spent on it to the store that I shop at normally in Northern California.
Mhm.
And I know that retailer got it. Have any of you seen that impact? Black Mask is doing it, TKO Studios. There are a few Goon stores.
I don't think stores are going to find out about that right away. Every book that's offered where that deal is offered is a book that I have in stock in my store anyway, so I would have to sell my copies before my customers.
Okay.
So
I think that's a noble. Yeah, sorry.
I still think it's a great idea. I admire that. I admire them doing
very
it.
noble, but a book like that, again, the indie books, it's noble, it's nice, it's a publicity thing, but I don't begrudge them to get a little bit of publicity for trying to help retailers. At the same time, there's guys like some of the crowdfunders out there have done things like $1,000 grants to comic book stores and stuff like that. Leaf. So I bumped you for a second. I wanted to bring you back in. So give me your thoughts here on this topic. Give me your thoughts here on where we go. Where do we go next, man?
I think for myself, I'm going to be supporting the publishers that have supported me, and a lot of those are the midterm stuff. I think there's going to be a more concerted effort to only order the things that I have pre-ordered, and I'm going to be using Comic Hub more for that, and they're continuing to develop better tools to pre-sell books. I don't want to be, whatever the discount, I don't want to be stuck with comics from Marvel and DC that I can't sell. Yeah. I'm more willing to take a risk on a Comic Pro.
I think it's clear. One thing that I think the industry would be nice to have is better retail or online channels for sales, for the ability, like when something like this happens, and a lot of people are scrambling and looking for ways to move product in other channels and stuff like that. I think this might be a lesson or a warning shot or a signal that it's worth establishing an online shipping situation and a setup in your store for occasional shipping, and then perhaps to make pivots into moves like this if something more dramatic happens. I don't think we're out of the woods yet on this stuff.
Oh no, I don't think we're going to see new comics until June. That's my 2 bits.
Yeah, and I could see it being longer than that, to be honest, right? It seems to me like we got a chance of it going possibly through August. I hope not, but it could be what's great for the country, but I know it's not going to be what's best for these shops. But like I said, guys, we're just about out of time here. I want to talk. I want to go around the horn one more time, and I want to do predictions. I want to start with Derek, and then I'm going to bump you, Derek, and I'll bring Mike in too for a prediction. So give us give us a prediction, everybody. This is like the end of the McLaughlin group. Prediction for the industry.
The industry, comics will survive. Will retailers? That I hate to say, I'm not sure in the way that we've known it. But comics will still be of interest. But as I've said before, I don't think that AT&T Warner Media really cares about being in the comics business. They want to be in the credit card business. They want to be in the T-shirt business and the movie business. Same thing with Disney, because that's who Marvel is right now. But there are people in those companies that still love comics, and they'll find a way. And every other publisher I know is in it because they love the form. They love the material they're presenting. We will still survive, but it's just not going to be the form it was a month ago.
Good point. Derek, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm going to bump you, like I said, now, but we're going to be having an all comics podcasters like media type live stream, and I'm definitely bringing you back in for that one. Thanks for joining us tonight, buddy. Thanks. Cool. So let's go to Jeremy Shore. Jeremy, you got any predictions for us? Where is this thing going?
I think this is going to shake out much like the big crash did in the 90s. That is, you're going to end up with people who are agile and smart and are willing to use whatever they can to keep themselves in business and productive and with everybody else, keeping their employees busy, that kind of thing. And there's so many alternative ways to make enough money to get by. Because, and this is a conversation that my wife and I have had repeatedly since this whole thing started, directing it back towards the landlord conversation. The landlord doesn't want to lose me as a customer. He's going to have to just find someone else to rent the space to, that kind of thing. While yes, he's got other problems similar to mine in terms of needing to deal with his creditors as well as I have to deal with mine. He doesn't want to lose my business because that's a source. That's a major source of income for him. And much like we don't want to lose the comic business, I know by customers now in the last, it's only been 10 days here in Dallas. I hear from 2 to 5 of them every day, wanting to make sure that I'm going to be okay, that my business is going to be okay, that I'm going to be here after all of this blows over. They're as aware as I am that we don't know when that's going to be. My goal is to still be here. That's my objective. And that's certainly one of the things I'm looking at all the tools available to me to do. Harkening back to the kickstarting conversation, I'm just not willing to spend money on product that I can't sell right now. And while I may support some of those small press ventures as we get closer to a period of time when I can be open for business and have regular customers coming in, right now I am not spending a dime that I don't absolutely have to.
Same here.
Yeah, Jeremy, you raised a great point about landlords. They're really like the most important partner that you can have, like in the business. And this crisis is revealing like the industry is all about this web of partnerships, from publishers to distributors to retailers and landlords even, right? And everything else. So, man, and everybody's affected. Everybody's got their own agenda and they're looking out for themselves. But I think the communal nature is going to make us pull together. Mike Hanson, give me a prediction, man. 2020 has started out pretty wild, especially for us up here in Humboldt County. We had power outages and all that crazy stuff going on as well. And now this. So what's your prediction for going forwards for comics?
Well, as far as where we are right now, the economy is essentially on pause right now. And the advantage we have is we're all in the same boat. Landlords aren't going to be looking for new people because, everyone is not making any money right now. So, assuming that people can, get through however long this lasts, I think we're going to come out on the other side stronger. I'm not worried about the big publishers because, like others have said, they're going to be okay. Actually, I'm not worried about the small publishers either because for most of them, publishing comics is a side hustle. That's not their primary source of income. Marvel is a side hustle for me. I was working full-time at a bookstore the last 4.5 years to pay the bills. And, I put together 20 books a year for Marvel, more or less. But, that's just one of many things that I'm doing. And I know a lot of creators that either publish digitally or Kickstarter or publish in print through previews. And for most of them, this is just one thing they do because they love it. They're passionate about it, not because it's going to be a big money-making thing. And that's the unfortunate reality of a lot of the people who are in the business, is that it is not the best way for any of us to be making money, looking at everything we could possibly be doing with our time. We're here because we love it, and we want comics to thrive and to survive. So it's really the mid-level publishers where I'm worried about their cash flow crunch. Some of them have.
That's a pretty good point. The small ones are often 1 or 2 person operations, right? That are probably they got a day job or whatever. But it's I don't know who's even a mid list now. Who is that like? Valiant.
Valiant, yeah, I would put Valiant in mid list.
And they've told everybody pencils down, right? everybody has stopped working over at Valiant Comics right now. They're not drawing anything. It could have to do with their crappy movies tanking at the box office as well. But that's a topic for another live stream. Mike, thank you. Thank you for your prediction. Let's go to Leaf in San Francisco. Leaf, predictions?
I agree with a lot of what's already been said. You know, the stores that are going to survive this, and I think a fair amount with the stores that are going to be agile and adaptable. But it's also a time to really sort of focus on, you know, our real strengths, being knowledgeable subject experts and being passionate salespeople. You know, that's something that any sort of other channel is not going to deliver. And I think that publishers really are going to appreciate that and do appreciate that. And they're trying to make our jobs as easy as possible to get through this crisis. And, you know, I think, you know, those things really matter. You know, we are not replaceable.
Jim Mortensen. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Cliff Biggers. We're going to wrap it up with Jim. Cliff Biggers, give me your predictions.
My prediction is, unfortunately, I suspect that as this year ends, we will see at least 10% fewer comic shops around than there are right now. There are some that just are financially not going to survive this, particularly those in areas that are going to be the slowest to recover financially, where they had a smaller market base to start with. And unfortunately, I think there are going to be some publishers that go out of business. This has been devastating. I think of mid-list publishers like Scout Comics. There's an issue of Comic Shop News that Diamond has, but no one has said, has an article about a brilliant book coming up from Scout called Yasmin, just a wonderful book about a teenage girl who survives the terrors of the ISIS invasion in Iraq and then moved to the U.S. and has to adjust. It is a brilliant sort of book that would have been a Vertigo level title a few years ago. Now it's going to get sort of lost in this void when it comes back, and I think that's a tragedy. But I think Scout will survive, but there are going to be a lot of other publishers that just can't get through this.
Yeah, that is a shame. It's definitely, man, the fallout is just going to be so widespread here. Jim Mortensen, give us a prediction, man.
You know, I think it's going to be akin to the 1990s fallout. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, I think it's going to be 15-20% of comic stores are going to be done. There's a lot of folks who are paycheck to paycheck who, you know, run their stores just to make ends meet and don't have the ability to weather 30 days, 60 days, 90 days of rent payments, of no income, of those sorts of things. I think it's going to dramatically change. I think that when folks come back to re-engage with us, they're not going to be excited to spend money. They're not going to, you know, come out right away and say, well, it's done now. I'm going to go out and spend all this cash I've been hoarding. It's going to be a tough thing trying to get them back into it. We're going to need to be lean. We're going to need to be very efficient. We're going to need to be brutal on what we do. And, you know, most of us who are talking will probably make it. I hope I'm one of them.
Please, let me do that. Yes, I'll take that one. Yes.
But, you know, as long as we don't, you know, keep seeing this happen, as long as we don't get, you know, COVID 616 coming down at some point, you know, we will make it. We will see the other side. But I think it will be very difficult. And there's going to be a lot of bloodletting all the way through things.
Here's the thing about the 90s crash analogy. Well, I believe there is an analogy to be drawn there. The big difference is there was so much fat to cut from the 90s, from the bubble that had inflated, whereas we've been in the last 10 years of barely recovering from that economy. And like comics recovered, right? But they didn't boom and skyrocket like a 90s type boom.
Right.
Well, now you're discussing history gets to be a problem there.
Okay.
But I think, and I speaking for myself, I can't effectively speak for everybody. The guys I know here in Dallas, for example, the last few years have been really good to them in terms of profit making and continuing to expand and to have good businesses going on. I can't speak of. I really don't know how to talk about smaller parts of the country, the shops in Des Moines, shops in small parts of Colorado, that kind of thing. I really can't speak for them, but at least in the Dallas area and the people I know in Houston as well, they've been doing they're doing gangbusters. They have been doing gangbusters, and they're the kind of people who will survive this. Coming out on the other side will be lean, like Jim said. It's going to be lean for everybody. I certainly foresee leanness for a long time, but I also go ahead, Cliff.
No, let Jeremy finish. I just wanted to add one thing to what he said. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's going to be lean for a long time, but at the same time, I just from listening to my customers again in 10 days, they're if I was to be able to open next week with new comics, they would come running in here and spend their money, whether or not they'd had a job, that kind of thing. Now, in 2 more months when this goes on, will that still be the case?
Wait till my prediction. I want to hear what Cliff has to say, and then I've got a prediction related.
The only thing I predicted a 10% loss. Jim was thinking more in that 20%. The one thing that I will add is whatever that percentage is, I think it's also going to be that same percentage of loss in locally owned restaurants and locally owned hair salons. It's not just going to be the comic shops this time. We are not isolated by a market effect like the 90s where it just affected our part of the industry, but everything else went along as normal.
I agree.
Either we're going to find governmental and cooperative resources that allow everyone to survive, or 10 to 25% of all those businesses are gone.
And honestly, the environment that could come out of it, lads, let me get a little bit of a ray of sunshine here. Okay, I'm going to make a slightly hopeful prediction that the death of X percentage of comic shops and retailers in general is going to open up more retail space. It's going to take those existing customers. It's going to redistribute those hardcore customers that do exist among the stores that are able to remain. And so that there could be a path to recovery. That's not the brightest ray of sunshine in the universe. It's a diminishing returns type of scenario. But for the ones that pull it off right, and I can honestly say that I know everybody in here are the types that are going to make, you guys are going to make different moves, and they're going to be right in different ways because they're going to be right for your individual markets and your customer bases. So I don't feel we're going to lose you guys, or at least I hope not, because we can't afford to lose killer retailers like yourselves. My final prediction, though, is this. 2020 is going to be a banner year for crowdfunded and digital comics. I feel like we're in week 1. Literally, it's been only 1 week, and I'm feeling like Jonesy. I'm feeling like, man, I want to read some comics. Like I was really caught up in my week-to-week comics, and I feel get into a couple months, you're going to get there is going to be certain percentage of people, if they do decide to publish digitally, that will make that switch. And it could be it's not going to be the tipping point to make it all digital, but it could be the beginning of that transition, certainly for the lower tier titles. I think all that does, though, guys, is if digital comics did open up and became more, it's an opportunity to sell more trades and more collected editions, like Leaf was saying, to sell ancillary merchandise, to be that place to go for expertise, for back issues, for just a friendly face in this world where there's not that many stores that you can go to where you don't got to drink alcohol or whatever to like enjoy something with your fellow friends. Mike, did you have a point?
Just real quick, that's why I think these guys are going to be okay when we're on the other side of this. Is what made me a success when I was the graphic novel guy at Eureka Books for 4 years was that I hand sold literally everything because no one else in the entire bookstore knew anything about comics. So all I could do was listen to every single customer, tease out what they were interested in or why they were coming in that day, and find a book to put physically into their hands and say, you're going to like this, you should buy this. And 9 times out of 10, that turned into a sale. And the majority of the time, it turned into a repeat customer. Someone, if they'd come in for the first time, you can turn them into repeat customers. And I think those are the people that are going to last. The people who listen to their customers and know what they want and know how to give it to them.
Well, I know for a fact it's these four guys because we got like, I don't know, maybe a century of combined retailing experience sitting right here on this screen. So not even including myself. So guys, keep up the good work. We're pulling for you. We're going to do more live streams. Every single one of you is invited back to a live stream anytime. I found, I listen to a lot of these things. I said it last time. I listen to a lot of this stuff online, and then we don't get anywhere near the level of commentary you fellas are providing, the real like street level experience where the rubber meets the road. So thumbs up, hats off. Thanks everybody for joining. Thank you out there in streaming land and comic book news land for watching. Come on back. We're going to do more live streams. I'm starting to stream comic book news on a regular basis. And I'm even doing a personal live stream. So if you just look up Dan Shaheen, I'm going to start streaming about stuff that's not comic, because guys, that's how bored and how much cabin fever I've got that I need somebody to talk to. So reach out, guys. Thank you for joining. I know I'm going to invite all you guys back, and I certainly hope you'll join us.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
See you now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, America. We'll see you soon.